Welcome back to another episode of Play Action Fantasy Football. Week 10 is here, and man, oh man, these injuries are deadly to some fantasy teams. But we're here to help you try to find the best players that could be a plug and play depending on injuries until some of these guys come back. But other than that, why don't we go ahead and jump right into it? This is Week 10, wide receiver start sits. Kicking us off here, you got Thursday Night Football, Panthers at the Bears. Good matchup here for a couple of these guys here. Adam Thielen's going to be a start for me in this one. Jonathan Mingo, DJ Charker sits. Thielen, 5 catches, 9 targets, 29 yards last week. Not his best performance, however, was up against the Indianapolis Colts. Should have seen a much better performance there. First week off a bye, though, so I'm not too worried about it. And he is still in the top 10 for most wide receiver rankings going into this week. He is one of the better guys so far this year, more consistent. So look for Thielen to have a good matchup here against the Bears. On the Bears side of the ball, DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney are both cautionary starts for me. I would lean more towards starting Darnell Mooney, especially because Tyson Bagent is going to be the quarterback again, as now we know that Justin Fields is out this week. So look for that to be a thing. Until Justin Fields comes back, I would look for DJ Moore to kind of be more cautionary or sit as of right now. He is definitely a great weapon. However, with him being Justin Field dependent right now, if you look at his stats, once Justin Field went out, it was all Darnell Mooney. Bagent likes Darnell Mooney. So for that reason, those guys are both going to be cautionary starts here, as the Panthers do have a top 5 ranking against wide receivers here. So look for that there. Tyler Scott's going to be a sit for me in this one, but if you're going to lean towards one of these guys, Darnell Mooney is definitely the guy to lean towards. And now we have the Sunday 9:30 game in Germany here. Colts Patriots. Not a good matchup compared to last week, even though last week was kind of a snooze fest till the end there. Colts, though, and Patriots. Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be a start for me in this one. Josh Downs is a sit. So is Alec Pierce and Isaiah McKenzie, who got an increase of role with Josh Downs being out with a questionable injury last week. He came into this game last week and ended up having about a quarter and a half, second quarter, he kind of went down. Knee injury, I'm a little concerned about that, so we'll end up seeing what happens there overall. But as of right now, those guys are all going to be sits for me. Patriots side of the ball, Demario Douglas. I told you guys he was a cautionary start last week. He would have won you some points and flex position like I told you to. If you had him at flex, good job for you. Definitely a guy I was willing to stream last week as he had 5 catches, 7 targets, and 55 yards. He's going to be an increase here as the number 1 guy too because, again, Kendrick Bourne is out. They like using him. Mac Jones is the guy he likes. That's his guy right now. Juju Smith-Schuster had a good game last week though. 6 catches, 7 targets, 51 yards. But he's been way too inconsistent. I'm going to go ahead and sit him in this matchup for Juju. Start Demario Douglas, though. Colts have given up a good amount of points to wide receivers recently, so look for him to be another flex position start here for me. Again, only flex position. But Devontae Parker is also going to be questionable in this matchup as well, as he has a concussion. He missed last week with that, so look out for his injury status as well. But regardless of his status, he is going to be a sit for me in this matchup in Germany. Now, why don't we jump into the 1 o'clock games? You got the Browns and the Ravens leading the charge here. Mari Cooper is going to be a start for me in this one. Deshaun Watson or no Deshaun Watson, he is definitely going to get you points. He had 1 bad week out of the last 4 where he had or did not have Deshaun Watson, so look for that for Amari Cooper here. Ravens are 8th against the pass, so keep that in mind. But Amari Cooper is just so flawless as a route runner. Just keep him in mind there. He should be a wide receiver 2 high end or wide receiver 1 low end, depending on who else you got. Rest of these guys, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, and Marquise Goodwin, I'm going to go ahead and sit them this week against the Ravens defense. Now, the Ravens side of the ball, this gets a little interesting. Odell Beckham has made an appearance last week. Finally, Odell Beckham has made an appearance last week. 5 catches, 7 targets, 56 yards, and a tutty. We love the tutty. Love the touchdown. So, look for Odell Beckham to kind of look for almost another revenge game against his former team in the Cleveland Browns here. And have him as a cautionary start. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go off, but he might be willing. I might be willing to put him at a flex position, maybe wide receiver 2, depending on injuries, depending on buys. You know, we got a couple good teams on bye this week, so keep that in mind. Zay Flowers, on the other hand, rough outing for him. 1 catch, 1 target, 11 yards. But other than that, he's been so consistent the rest of this year. Now, again, cautionary start. One of these 2 guys are going to end up getting points here, if not both. But the problem is that the Browns are number 2 against wide receivers in points in fantasy football, and that's a problem. So if you do start these guys, flex position only in my opinion, and be very cautious of that. Now, moving on, we got Green Bay and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Christian Watson will be a start for me in this matchup here. If he does play, he did leave again with a questionable injury, but against the Steelers, I absolutely love the opportunity for him here. Now, if you're looking at this, Romeo Doubs is a cautionary start for me in this one. He has gotten a touchdown the last couple weeks here. However, that's all going to be dependent on if Christian Watson plays. If Watson plays, Doubs is obviously going to be a cautionary start. Stay at a cautionary start. Now, if Watson does not play, elevate Doubs to a start. Steelers are 27th against points to wide receivers. Absolutely love the opportunity for them there. And Jordan Love is not a terrible quarterback. He's been a little inconsistent in fantasy here and there, but for the most part, he is roughly around 13 to 16 points per game, which is enough for you if you had him as a backup, but as a starter, I'm not too high on that. Now, on the Steelers side of the ball, Deontay Johnson, start him. The dude is killing it. 7 catches, 9 targets, 9 yards, and a tutty. Love it. Absolutely love it. This dude is balling since he came back from injury, and he will continue here even up against the Packers, and they're 6th ranked against wide receiver points. So look for Deontay Johnson to continue there, even with Kenny Pickett or Trubisky at the helm. George Pickens is a cautionary start. With Deontay Johnson back, he's definitely taken over a lot of the targets for George Pickens there, so look for that as kind of an issue there. Pickens for me is a low-end wide receiver 2 in a flex play if you have him, and then Allen Robinson's a sit in this matchup. Continuing now, you got the 49ers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. 49ers are going to have Brandon Ayuk as a start for me. Now, Deebo Samuel is coming off a questionable tag here. At least it seems like he is expected to play, but I'm a little nervous about that. Okay, Deebo Samuel is coming off a shoulder injury. Jaguars do give up a decent amount of points to wide receivers. However, I'm curious to see if he's going to have the full range of motion with that shoulder. That's going to be the biggest issue for me with Deebo Samuel. Having that shoulder injury, you're going to be a little skittish. You're not going to want to hit the ground. You're not going to want to take those big blows. You're going to want to catch the ball and get out of bounds. And that could be a benefit for fantasy football, especially with getting a target, getting a catch, and running out of bounds, especially in PPR format. But it's just a little iffy for me. I want to see how he does his first game back against the Jaguars first. And then Juwan Jennings is going to be a sit for me in this matchup. Now, moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars side, a big opportunity for them before the bye week. They played really well against the Steelers. Like I said, they give up a good amount of points on the wide receiver side. Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley will be starts for me in this one, as the 49ers, even with getting Chase Young, they're going to have to get the ball out quick. You got a big target guy in Christian Kirk and a fast and short guy in Calvin Ridley who can catch, run, get you some yak yards after catch. That's what you want from this matchup. You want some quick passes and then open up some deep passes. On top of that, you also have Travis Etienne, who is going to help open up the passing game. So look for that. I'm starting Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley. Zay Jones is going to be a sit for me in this matchup. Moving on now, you got the Saints and the Minnesota Vikings, and this is going to be an interesting one. Chris Olave is going to be a start for me. Michael Thomas, a cautionary start, and Rashid Shaheed is going to be a sit. Chris Olave is definitely the number one guy there, and he will continue to be that, especially with Derek Carr at the helm. Michael Thomas did see a little bit of an up and down tick the last couple weeks here, so look for him to be a cautionary start. Now, against the Vikings, who are 25th against wide receiver when it comes to points, this is something I'm going to be very, very interested in. Michael Thomas, for me, is a flex play only, unless you have injuries. Again, wide receiver 2 status for me on Michael Thomas. Chris Olave should be in your lineup no matter what. Now, on the Viking side of the ball, Josh Dobbs. Bingo card, check that one off. I mean, it's ridiculous. That dude came in with almost no preparation and played balls to the wall. He was absolutely phenomenal. And he doesn't have a lot of targets. As you see, Justin Jefferson is not on the screen. Justin Jefferson is probably going to be out another week or two, as I kind of expected. He was supposed to be back around this time frame, and he's going to miss another week or two as well, reports say. Jordan Addison definitely benefited, though, from Josh Dobbs coming into the game. He's going to be a start in this matchup. Saints are middle of the pack when it comes to wide receivers. Jordan Addison is just so fast and elusive that this is something that you got to keep an eye on with Jordan Addison, with Josh Dobbs especially there. And Josh Dobbs opens up the passing game with his legs and his running ability on top of Alexander Mattison. KJ Osborne did leave the game with a questionable tag, so I'm going to go ahead and sit KJ Osborne and Brandon Powell. Brandon Powell did end up scoring a touchdown, but other than that, not a whole lot of production for him. So go ahead and sit both those guys. KJ Osborne, again, questionable tag. Keep an eye on his status. I'm not starting him regardless, but other than that, Jordan Addison start, sit the rest of them. Now, this is going to be a really, really tough debate one here, and I'm sure I'm going to get a couple comments on this one. Let me know about it, okay? Because I have Jamar Chase in my league, and we're going to get to that point here in a minute. But Texans side of the ball, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, go ahead and start both of them. Nico Collins is still going to be the number one target for C.J. Stroud. Tank Dell, though, coming back is going to eat into a little bit of that. But Tank Dell, with his speed, opens up the big play opportunity for the Houston Texans, which could also allow for more and more opportunity for Nico Collins to get some quick hit routes, just boom, boom, boom. Get some catches, get some yards, just rack them up. Where Tank Dell's going to have that explosiveness or that red zone target. Nico Collins is also a big red zone target. So both these guys are going to benefit from this matchup here as they go up against the Bengals, who are 12th against wide receivers and when it comes to points. Now, Robert Woods, questionable in this matchup. I'm going to go ahead and sit him. And Noah Brown, even though he had a phenomenal game last week, I'm going to sit him as well. I got to see it one more time here, especially against a tough opponent like the Bengals. Bengals side of the ball. Here's where it gets a little controversial. T. Higgins, I'm starting. I'm starting T. Higgins. 8 catches, 9 targets, and 110 yards last week against Buffalo. The reason he got all those points and targets, though, is Jamar Chase with a back injury. He's questionable. I have him in one of my fantasy leagues. He's going to be a cautionary start for me. Temper your expectations with this. Jamar Chase with that back injury is going to kind of be a quick hit, get out of bounds type thing. He might not even play. Okay, we'll be honest here. He didn't practice today. And when I say today, it's Wednesday when I'm recording this. You'll hear this one tomorrow on Thursday. But Jamar Chase, temper your expectations. 4 catches, 8 targets, and 41 yards. He did have a big play opportunity, 6 yards down the field. That's when he got hurt. So keep that in mind. He's a cautionary start. Tyler Boyd's going to be a sit for me in this matchup, though. How about the Titans and the Buccaneers? This one's going to be very interesting when it comes to wide receivers and points adding up. DeAndre Hopkins is definitely benefiting now with a quarterback such as Will Levis. And I'm going to go ahead and start DeAndre Hopkins in this matchup. Now, that being said, moving on to the cautionary guy, I already know I could get a lot of comments over this one as well, so bear with me here. Hear me out on this one. Kyle Phillips is the security blanket for Will Levis. He's going to target Hopkins. 4 catches, 11 targets, and 60 yards for Hopkins. But Phillips, 4 catches, 5 targets, 68 yards against the Steelers last time they were on the field. Well, that's a little interesting. Kyle Phillips is that security blanket for Will Levis. So look for him to kind of get those first down, those little dink and dunk type of passes to get you some yards and go from there. Now, Treylon Burke had a scary whiplash with his neck, so keep an eye on that one. He is questionable, and I'm actually going to sit him regardless of the fact. And then Westbrook Ikine is going to be, probably botch that name, he is going to be a sit for me in this one as well. Now, Buccaneers side of the ball, this gets interesting. Mike Evans is a start. Chris Godwin's a start. Even though Chris Godwin has had a little bit of a struggle the last 2 games, look for a bounce back here against the Titans, who are 26 against wide receivers in fantasy points. Trey Palmer, though, it will be a sit. And I will say, Trey Palmer, keep an eye on him. Baker has been targeting him more and more. I've been saying it the last couple weeks. He's consistently getting around 6 to 8 points, roughly in that range. If one of these guys goes down, you might see an uptick in Trey Palmer. So right now, pump the brakes on it. I'm not too worried about it, but keep an eye on him. He could be a steal at the end of the year when you might need somebody because of a late bye in Week 14 if your playoff start around that time. Now we got the 4 o'clock games, Lions and Chargers. This one's going to be good, at least for 2 wide receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be a start for me in this one, and then the rest of these guys, Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. Yet a newly acquired Donovan Peoples-Jones in the trade deadline before they had their bye or during their bye week. These guys are all sharing targets, and I don't know what to do with them yet. You got to see what they got first. We already know Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to get a majority of the targets, and he's going to be the number 1 guy for the receivers. However, the rest of these guys are going to be hit and miss. They're either 4 catches or 4 targets or 3 targets or 2 targets every single week. One of them's taken from the other, but nobody's eating into Amon-Ra St. Brown's targets. He's going to get his targets no matter what. Charger side of the ball, Keenan Allen, start him. Quinn Johnston's going to be a sit. You can't perform against the Jets, who are a tough secondary, at least with Sauce Gardner. Quinn Johnston has struggled the last couple of weeks regardless of playing the Jets or not playing the Jets. I mean, that is ridiculous as a wide receiver, too. He's barely clips over 5 points in half of those weeks. In the last 4 weeks, probably one of those 4 weeks, he's actually clips over 5 or 6 points. And then Jalen Guyton is going to be a sit for me in this one as well. And continuing our 4 o'clock games, you got the Falcons and the Cardinals. Drake London is questionable going into this matchup. However, now that he has a viable quarterback in Taylor Heineke. I am going to go ahead and put him as a start if he plays. This could be a really good opportunity for Drake London. Now, another guy on that screen that I could get some confrontational comments for is Kadarius Hodges. Kadarius Hodges was the guy that was getting majority of the looks when it came to passing from Taylor Heineke. Again, one of those dink and dunk type of wide receivers, but can also have a possibility of getting a big shot down the field if blown coverage happens. Kadarius Hodges is kind of Taylor Heineke's security blanket, especially with no Drake London last week. He needed somebody to go to. Even with Drake London coming back with that injury that he had last week, I expect him to still continue to hit Kadarius Hodges. So Drake London start, Kadarius Hodges is a cautionary start. Go ahead and sit Matt Collins and Van Jefferson, and Matt Collins is dealing with a questionable injury as well right now. Cardinal side of the ball, Kyler Murray is officially back, and none other than Marquise Brown will be a start in this matchup. With a viable quarterback to hit targets to him, I'm going to go ahead and say Marquise Brown is a start in this matchup. Now, Michael Wilson is a questionable tag right now going into this matchup. I'm going to go ahead and sit him regardless, and then Rondale Moore is also going to be a sit. If this was last week, I would have said, if Kyler Murray played, maybe one of these guys would have been a start. But unfortunately, as of right now, no, not going to happen. Marquise Brown's the only start in this matchup. And then that leads us to the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. And again, sit every single Cowboy wide receiver. There's no reason to even have them on your roster moving forward and the rest of the year, at least until something magical happens with this team, which I don't think is going to happen. Dallas side of the ball, though, CeeDee Lamb, you're starting CeeDee Lamb. You're starting CeeDee Lamb. You should not be sitting CeeDee Lamb at any means necessary. Always have him in your lineup. Always, 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 always. Always have him in your lineup. Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks, so go ahead and sit him in this matchup. Now you got the Washington Commanders and the Seattle Seahawks, and Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson are going to be starts for me in this one. It gets interesting here. Dotson in the last 2 games has had 12 catches combined, 18 targets combined, 177 yards, and 2 tutties. 2 touchdowns. Love it. Jahan Dotson, I put as a cautionary start 1 week ago, and I put him as a sit the last week prior to that. No Curtis Samuel the last 2 weeks has definitely been a big plus, or at least an injured Curtis Samuel. Jahan Dotson is finally getting the looks and finally getting the targets. We love to see it. So Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson are both going to be starts. Curtis Samuel will be a sit with that questionable tag. Now moving on to the Seahawks, this could be a little controversial as well. DK Metcalf is a start. Jackson Smith and Jigba will get the start over Tyler Lockett in this situation. Smith and Jigba had 6 catches, 7 targets, and 63 yards last week against the Ravens, who pretty much shut them out. I mean, blew them out of the water. Over those last 3 games, Smith and Jigba has had 16 points, 12 points, and 12 points in PPR format. Oh yeah, and he's had 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He's getting used the correct way, but for me, he's a start only at the flex position. You want a guy to plug in at your flex position. By the way, he is dealing with a questionable injury, but I'm not worried about his questionable tag right now. He is probably going to end up playing regardless. I would say it's like 90 to 10% that he does not end up playing, or he ends up playing 90% right now. So keep that in mind. But Tyler Lockett, he's been struggling the last couple weeks ever since that one injury. So just keep that in mind. Tyler Lockett, cautionary start. I am actually going to start Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I know I'm going to get some stuff for that. But go back and listen to the stats and go look at what they've done recently. He has been utilized more and more the correct way, just like he was at Ohio State. So that's why he's a start. Now you got Sunday night game at 8 o'clock, and this one I'm not looking forward to at all. So many question marks here. Jets, Raiders. The only guy I'm not questionable on or question marks on is Garrett Wilson. Go ahead and start Garrett Wilson. Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb are both going to be sits in this matchup, but Garrett Wilson will be a start moving forward. It's the only guy that's actually fantasy viable other than Breece Hall out of this offense. Raiders side of the ball, Devontae Adams, he's getting very dangerously close to a sit at this point. Very dangerously close. It's hard to say sit somebody with as much talent as he has, but I'm going to give him the benefit of doubt one more week just because Aiden O'Connell is finally getting accustomed to this playbook and on the field actually in real game reps here. So second week with Aiden O'Connell doing this, I think he could potentially hit Devontae Adams here for some good amount of points. Go ahead and keep him as a cautionary start in this matchup. More of a wide receiver 2 play for me. Jacoby Myers, same thing, wide receiver 2. He might actually get you a little bit more points than Devontae Adams. He has been most of the year, so just keep that in mind. Hunter Renfrow, and a new guy enters the equation here in Trey Tucker. He's going to be a sit as well. And finally, last but not least, you got the Broncos and the Bills. Go ahead and start Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton has put up 14, 19, and 10 points the last 3 weeks. He's definitely getting double-digit points for you. He is more of a flex play for me. Maybe a wide receiver too, depending on bye week and injuries. I know Miami's on a bye week. That kind of hurts a lot of people, so keep that in mind. And then same thing with the Kansas City Chiefs. But Jerry Jeudy, on the other hand, he will also be a cautionary start in this matchup. He is 11 points and 13 points the last 2 weeks. Starting to pick it up a little bit, but not to the point where I'm ready to put him as a start yet. And against Buffalo, he could potentially see a good amount of points. I'll be honest with you. Courtland Sutton should see a good amount of points. Jerry Jeudy could have a really good game. Buffalo is 16th against wide receivers here in this matchup, so keep that in mind. Marvin Mims is going to be a sit as well in this matchup. Buffalo side of the ball, you're starting Stephon Diggs, no doubt about it. And I'm going to go ahead and give Gabe Davis and Khalil Shakir both cautionary starts. Gabe Davis has seen a little bit of up and down this season, so play him at your own risk. But Shakir, 7 points, 15 points, 9 points. He's getting you close to almost 10 points a game. Again, this is only a play for me. Shaquille Shakir is going to be a play for me at flex. He is a flex play only, especially in deeper leagues. If you have 2 flex positions, you play him. He's the guy who could explode here, as the Broncos are 15th against wide receiver when it comes to points. This should be a good opportunity for receivers to get a good amount of points in this game here. But other than that, that's going to end it for our wide receiver start sit video. Make sure you like and subscribe. It goes a long way here. Other than that, we'll talk to you later. Have a good one.